As part of our ongoing attempt to make sure that this evaluation form has shared meaning, that we know what these terms mean and we have some sense for what distinguishes excellent from good, from satisfactory, from poor, from flawed and missing. I want to make sure that we have that shared meaning, so we've been taking a look at some sample speeches, both in a rougher version and in a more refined version. And so it's a way of just running through the rubric a couple of times to not only help you improve as a speaker, but help you improve as a critic. So what we're going to do now is take a look at Kathy's speeches. The first one we're going to take a look at is a rougher version of the speech in response to the thesis, "Online education will never replace traditional universities." So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Ideally, you would have your copy of the feedback form with you, so you can be sort of marking what you think in terms of as you're evaluating this speech. I would also recommend you flow the speech just so that you've got sort of the almost a descriptive account of what went down in that speech, as well as an evaluative account of what's going on in that speech. So let's go ahead and take a look at this now.
I do like online education, but I have to agree that online education will never replace traditional universities. In college, I had an excellent mentoring relationship with one of my teachers. He was my organic chemistry professor, and while he taught organic chemistry very well, he also took an extra step, and at a time where I was very unsure of my career path, he sat down with me and took a look at my career options and my goals, and he provided me with more insight into my options. And not only that, but he also provided me with opportunities and encouraged me to look into paths that I hadn't considered beforehand. And so ultimately, this mentoring relationship that I had with him ultimately played a very large role in dictating where I am today and the career path that I chose to take. Now, had I enrolled in an online course for organic chemistry, I wouldn't have been able to get this mentoring relationship because I wouldn't have had that face-to-face interaction that I had with him that was so helpful in determining my career goals. Now, in terms of this mentoring relationship, there's been a huge amount of research to look into how this can affect educational outcomes. And so, in fact, educational research indicates that mentoring makes a huge difference in student success rates. And this entails graduation rates, course success rates, and just overall educational quality. And so this is something that online education will never be able to replicate because there's never going to be that face-to-face interaction that occurs with traditional universities. Something else that perhaps on-campus sites offer compared to online education is this idea of assessment of understanding. So at an on-campus university, teachers and proctors can assess students accurately and look to see if a student is cheating or if a student is taking an exam and earning the actual grade that he or she deserves. And so in this case, a teacher can match a score to a student and ensure that no cheating occurred and that certification of this grade is in fact correct. Now, something else that on-campus sites offer is this idea of socialization. You don't get that social aspect in online education. So what this means is that a degree from a university online doesn't have more power than a certificate from a university that's on campus because it doesn't offer the socialization aspect. And what I mean by this is that in terms of socialization, traditional universities allow students to commingle, and this can foster growth and expansion of relationships between students to encourage ideas and encourage growth of students overall. And so while I do like online education very much, I don't believe that traditional universities will be going away anytime soon.
Now, that's actually a very interesting speech in the sense that there's some good evidence in there, but the arrangement, the main points, are almost entirely absent. So what happens is she starts off, if I'm looking down the flow of that speech, she starts off with that thesis statement, and then she just starts telling stories. So she's jumping directly to that evidence. At no point is there really a shell of a claim that houses those pieces of evidence. So we've got lots of an impressionistic sense of why, in her argument, online education will never replace traditional universities, but I couldn't necessarily define set reasons. So it's just a lot of evidence without sort of a driving claim. So if we're moving through here, her example, actually a very strong example, and I think a good argument, or good example for an argument, is the discussion of our organic chemistry teacher. And it really captures what that organic chemistry teacher did for her as a student, and how she was able to sort of develop a lot in that. I don't hear a lot of comparison between how her experience with this particular professor could not be replicated online, and in fact that's what her thesis is arguing, right? Online education will never replace traditional universities. So that kind of needs to be brought out a little bit more. She's got some discussion around educational success, but we don't really have any tangible stuff there. She's got some discussion of assessment, and ultimately I wrote down here, this needed better discussion of how this related to the comparative claim. So she ends up talking a lot about assessment, but once again, we've got almost a comparative claim, why online educations are not going to do this. So that assessment needs to say, online assessment is not going to replace traditional universities' assessment. That sort of comparison just doesn't really jump out. So as we're looking at this invention, she's got good evidence, but there's no claims in there. There's no discrete claims. I sometimes will talk about this as a speaker, you're in the role of a cook. Okay, you don't go to a restaurant and you sit down and the cook brings out all the raw ingredients and dumps them onto your table and says, you could make an awesome stew with the stuff there. I'll leave you to it. Rather, the cook's in the kitchen mixing those ingredients together and brings to you the completed dish. That's kind of what I think is going on here. You got a lot of ingredients, but they're laid out on the table and you're asking the audience to figure out what this all means. It's a choose your own adventure argument, and that's not what you want to do. Your job as a speaker is to do that preparation, to make sure people have that frame of reference. The arrangement, well, there are no claims. I don't know where I am. I never know when the end's going to come, right? Since it's just a series of anecdotes, I never know when we're going to stop. There's not necessarily a clear, logical build. Since there's no preview, I don't know what to be listening for at the end. And in terms of delivery, there's pretty low energy, but I would say the delivery is not really the most significant problem here. So if I move through the eval form, invention, main points, well, there's not really anything to evaluate. They are pretty clearly missing, or at the very least very poor. I can maybe intuit my way to a few of what those main points might be, but that would just be poor. The support, I don't know. Some of it's pretty good. Online education doesn't have the power that traditional universities do. I think all of this can go into a very strong speech. So if I'm just looking at the support, I don't know, maybe that's probably good. I see some good support in this. Certainly her discussion of that organic chemistry teacher was exactly what we want. Arrangement. Well, again, arrangement is just poor, just poor. I never know where we are. I don't know how close we are to the beginning, to the end, and when she stops, it's not a total surprise, but I wasn't able to anticipate that. So I'd say the arrangement is poor. And the delivery is good. Some low energy, she's not lacking significantly in confidence. There's projection, I can hear her. Pacing and pausing is fine, low energy, but it's there. Gestures and movement certainly are not distracting. So that is her flawed version. In the next one, we're going to take a look at this exact same thesis, but just much better.